Animations are a big part of gaming development, and it's important to know how to do it. It's Pixelated Potato, and today I'm going to teach you how to animate an object in Unity, so let's get going. First, we're going to need to open the animation window. You can get to that by going to Window up here in the top, clicking Animation, and then Animation. It'll open up this window. Probably not small like this, but if you want, you can grab the tab where its name is and you can move it wherever you want it to be. We're going to want to create our animation here. But depending on how you have your object set up, you might want to select a different thing. If the object you're animating is one solid object that only has one part that you're animating, then you can just click that and go ahead and click Create. Now, if the object you're animating is a child of another object, like if I wanted to animate this, then you want to animate this object and not the parent. So make sure you're selected on the object you want to animate. Now, if you're animating something like I am, where it's in a ton of different pieces, but I want to animate all of it all at once, you click the parent and click Create. Now, you can name the animation whatever you want it to be named. I'm just going to name this Idle. This will be the animation he does when he's just standing there. Once you've named it, you can find it somewhere in your assets folder, wherever you decided to put it. And now, here comes the creative part of this. What we're going to do is we're going to click this little record button, and it is currently at the very first frame of this animation. So we're going to put him in the position that we want him to be in at the very start, which I think is just going to be this position. So however you want the first frame to look, you can move with the different tools here, however you want it to be. Once you have it in the position you want it to be in, you're going to go down here to the animation panel, and you're going to drag this little line, or just click somewhere, wherever you want it to be. So here it's at about 10 milliseconds. This is 50. This is 1 second right here, just so you know how to read that. Once you have it where you want the next frame of animation to be, you can move the pieces of your object wherever you want them to be. Now, what's nice with Unity is you don't actually have to animate each individual frame. You can just animate one frame in the middle, and it will smoothly transition to where you want it to be. Now, that's a little fast. No one really breathes that fast. So what we can do is we can click this top keyframe symbol here, hold Shift, and click the end one. And what that'll do is that'll select the very two ends that you clicked and everything that's in between it. You can grab this little bar here, and you can drag it out and make it longer. Now that's still a bit fast, so I'm going to drag it out even more to maybe about a second. You can see it's snapping back to the beginning frame, and it's a little strange, and I don't really want it to do that. So what we can do to fix that is you click this top keyframe again, you click Control C, and then you go to where you want the next frame to be. So I want this to be 2 seconds. And then I go Control V, and now if I press play, you'll see he smoothly breathes. You don't have to animate anything in between, just starting position, end position, then back to starting position so that it loops nice and smooth. To make a new animation, you'll click the name of your animation here underneath the record button and click Create New Clip. Now that we have that done, let me make my animations. Okay, now that the animations are all done, go to the animator. So to get to this tab, you're going to go back up to the window button up here, and then you're going to go back down to animation and then animator, and that'll open this tab. Again, it might not be in the same spot as mine, but I like to have mine here. Now if you click on whatever you animated right here, and it'll show up in here all of your animations. Now one of them will automatically be connected to this entry button, And what that means is when I click play, it will automatically be playing this animation whether or not I want it to. So we can change that by right clicking one of our animations and then clicking set layer default state. Now my idle animation will be the default that it enters into. You can see he just breathes right here. Now in order to transition to either of these, we're going to need to make transitions. You can make a transition by right clicking your animation, click make transition, and then clicking the next animation. If you make a transition from one animation to another, it can only play this animation. So my wave animation, it'll only play if the idle animation is playing before it, because that's the only spot that it can transition from. Now, if you want it to be able to go from any state, so any time it can transition to either of these, you want to right click the any state, which is this blue-green kind of button here. You'll right click that, make transition, and then you can go to any of your animations. And now, it doesn't matter what animation is playing, if a condition is true, it can play either of these two animations. If I just click play, it's just going to play the idle animation, because nothing is telling it to move to either of these two animations. It has the ability to move, but it just doesn't see the need to. So what we're going to do is we're going to create a parameter. There's layers and parameters. Make sure you're clicked on parameters. I'm going to click this plus sign here. Now here you have a float, an int, a bool, and a trigger. A float is any whole number as well as any numbers in between. So this is your decimal places. An integer is any whole number. It has to be a whole number. A bool, short for boolean, is whether true or whether false. So if something is true, it can play an animation, or if something is false, it can stop an animation. The trigger is on or off. If anything is set on a trigger, it will either be on or it will either be off, along with the trigger. I'm going to create a trigger here. We're just going to call it wave. I'm going to then click on this arrow and we can edit the transition here. This has a lot of things, including exit time, duration, and this right here, which I'm going to turn off. Can transition to self, allows it to continuously try and play this animation even when it's not done playing. So it will cut it off in the middle. Then what's really important here is this conditions. If we add to the list, it'll automatically set wave as a condition. Because wave is just a trigger, it will play the wave animation when wave is on. It will not if wave is off. I'm going to create a new parameter and we're just going to make this one an integer. We're going to call it nod. Now an integer, if we go to this transition by clicking this arrow, we can create a condition, change it to nod, and we can make it so that if nod is greater than 0, play this animation. If nod is less than 0, play this animation. If nod is equal to 0, play this animation, and if it's not equal to 0, play this animation. So I'm just going to make it so if nod is not equal to 0, play this animation. Now what we can do is if I press play, I can manually activate the trigger or the nod. Now you can see with this transition, I didn't uncheck can transition to self. So you can see it's only playing part of the animation because it's continuously trying to transition here because nod is not equal to 0. So if I uncheck that and set this back to something that's not 0, you can see it plays the full animation now. Now this is cool and all, but you can't always be in the editor and controlling these animations from here. So what you're going to need to do is you're going to need to go into your assets folder and create a script by right clicking an empty area, clicking create, and then if you're in Unity 6, you're looking for mono behavior script. If you're in an earlier version, you're just looking for C# script, and then you're going to name it something that relates to animations. So you can name it whatever you want. I'm just going to call mine player anim. Now you can open this script by double clicking the file itself. Now in the script, we are going to want to create a public animator variable, and I'm just going to call it anim. So now we're not going to need the start void, so we can get rid of that. And inside of the update function, we're going to want an if statement, and that says if input get key down, key code, and then whatever key you want here. You can do H, you can do Y, you can do W. It doesn't matter as long as it's a key on the keyboard. There's all of this that you can do. Now I'm just going to set it to Q. So if input on key down, key code Q. In this if statement, we can do anim dot set trigger, and then just get the name of the trigger, which for us is just wave, all lowercase. Now what this is doing is every frame it's checking to see if the key Q is pressed, and if it is, set the trigger wave. We can also make an if statement for another key. It doesn't really matter which key you choose. You can do anim dot set integer, and here we're going to get the name of our integer in quotes, which is just nod, and then a comma, and what we're going to set it to. Now, for this if statement, it's checking to see if the key code is R, and if it is, set the integer nod to 1. What's going to happen now is we press R, it'll set it to 1, and it's just going to stay 1. So the nod will always be playing. You probably don't really want that, so we're going to make an else statement. And here you can just do else anim dot set integer nod comma 0. Then there you go. So that is how you do the trigger and integer. Now let's go back to Unity. We're gonna get this script, I'm gonna click and drag the script onto whatever it is that you animated. It's right here now. So now what we're gonna do is we're gonna grab our player, or whatever it is you animated, and drag it into this animator slot. And you can see it already found the animator. Now we can press play and test our script. You can see it by default started playing the idle animation. So now if I press Q, he starts to wave. If I press R, he begins to nod. Thanks for watching, and it's Potato out.